Okay, so the very first assumption that we need to make is that businesses or firms exist to maximize profit. And in case you don't know, the symbol in economics for profit is usually pi. I don't know why we chose pi. There's lots of other letters we could use. My guess is that P was taken by price, and so we went with pi. All right. But anyway, firms exist to maximize profits. Now, when it comes to maximizing profits, we have to recognize a couple of things. First, the firm can only affect variables that are in its own direct control, right? So firms in a competitive market cannot dictate what prices they pay for their inputs, including labor. Okay, if the market is competitive, the firm has to basically take the price of the labor. And so in this case, in competitive markets, and by competitive markets, what we mean is that workers and machines and everyone, they have options. There's lots of different things that you could do. Okay, so in a competitive market, firms, which are the same thing as businesses, it's just a shorter word, are all price takers. All right, again, what this means is that the price of labor is given. They can't dictate the price. They have to pay a certain amount of dollars in order to hire you, let's say. And there's no wiggle room on it. They pay you less, you go somewhere else. If they pay you more, everyone comes to them. Okay, so they are price takers. Okay, so as a result, in this kind of a world, what the firm is deciding is not really about how much they're going to pay their workers, right? But what they're actually more concerned with, or what they're actually deciding on, is whether to increase or decrease output. Okay, so firms are fundamentally concerned with whether or not to increase or decrease output. And second, so one, and the second concern is how to do this. Should they hire more workers or machines or less? Right? So they're fundamentally concerned with whether or not to expand or contract output, or increase or decrease output, and then they're fundamentally concerned with how to actually do this. Okay. Now, because the firms are constantly trying to figure out new ways of making profit by either increasing revenues, which they can do, or decreasing costs. Okay, so innovations can either increase revenue by making their product better, or they can find a way to decrease costs. Either one of these will act to increase profit. Okay, so we're always concerned with maximizing profit. Now, it should be noted, or I should mention, that the decision to open a new factory or begin a brand new product line is, of course, a very important one. But these decisions are so rare and are so few and far between that they're not really worthwhile to study in this class. There wouldn't be much knowledge gained if we studied them. Basically, you can analyze them the same way we're going to analyze this. It's just a bigger project. Okay. But what we're really concerned with are sort of the day-to-day operations of firms, and more specifically, changes in their decision-making patterns, right? And it's these marginal decisions that we really want to study. Okay, so maybe the business will hire, or the firm will hire a new worker, or they'll lay off one, or maybe they'll want to buy some new equipment or sell a piece of equipment. Okay, and so the point here, right, is that there's lots of ways to change your productivity, to change output, how much output is coming out. And the firm is always trying to basically change output in order to maximize profit. Okay, so it's all about changing output and changing the process by which output is made using either machines or labor, right, in order to do that. Okay, and so what the firm is always trying to do is compare what's called marginal revenue and marginal cost. Right? Marginal revenue being the additional revenue that the firm receives from selling just one more unit. Okay, so if the firm excels, let's say they're growing oranges, right? The marginal revenue would be the additional revenue that the firm gets. So they're getting, this much revenue here, and then they sell one more orange and they get this much revenue, right? So it goes from here to here. The marginal revenue is the change in total revenue. Okay, and the marginal cost, right, which is the cost of going from here to here, right? So you can think of this as the change in total revenue, and this is the change in total cost. Okay, so they're always weighing the marginal revenue against the marginal cost. If the marginal revenue is greater than the marginal cost, so if MR is greater than MC, then you actually want to expand output. And if MC is greater than MR, you want to contract or reduce output. Okay, and if MR is equal to MC, then you're good. You're all set. Right? The goal is to make marginal revenue equal to marginal cost. Okay. Now, the way that the firm can increase or decrease production, right? How can they do this? How can they expand output, right? The only way to do that is to hire more workers or machines, which we just call capital. Okay. If they want to reduce output, what can they do? Well, they have to lay off workers or capital. Right? And so for the purposes of this class, whenever we're talking about workers, we're basically talking about labor. And whenever we're talking about things that go into producing output that aren't workers, those are going to be capital. Okay, so capital is typically thought of as machines or the factory itself or anything, basically anything that is not people is capital. Okay, so labor is equal to basically people, and capital is all things not people. Okay. Now, we also have this third concept called human capital, which seems a bit paradoxical. These are like the skills, knowledge, etc. that people have. Okay, so at some level, you can think of human capital as like your knowledge. Okay, so you guys are in college right now, and as a result, you are investing in your human capital. Okay, your human capital augments your labor to make you more productive. Okay, because you know some things. So let's think about doctors, right? They have a high amount of human capital, and as a result, their labor is very productive. Right? Even if they don't have any machines with them, a doctor can be extremely productive just on his own, right? Or think about construction workers, right? A construction worker who knows how to use tools and everything very well, right? His amount of human capital is very high in a different direction from doctors, obviously, right? his human capital is going to be very high as well. It augments his labor and makes him more productive. He knows things about construction that frankly I'll never know, right? And as a result, it's no mystery that when I try to build something, it fails, and when a professional tries to build something, even with the same tools, so with the same capital, right, the professional is much better at it than I am, right? And as a result, he makes better things than I do, right? No mystery there, okay? It's important to also recognize that labor without capital can't do anything, right? Without any capital whatsoever. So think of someone with literally zero skills and literally zero knowledge or literally zero education, right? Can they produce anything of value? So what about like infants, right? Do infants actually go around producing things? Well, no. They basically consume things, right? You certainly, hopefully, if you have children, you love them unconditionally, and et cetera. And so you're not weighing the marginal cost of your child versus the marginal benefit of your child, like not. Okay, there's economics of children. It's not in this class. Okay, but in terms of production, children are terribly unproductive, right? Or infants are terribly unproductive. Or they might even be negatively productive, right? So the point here is that labor by itself can't produce anything, right? But at the same time, capital by itself can't produce anything either, right? So if we think about this, right, like I have, a whole bunch of tools sitting in my friend's garage right now. Okay, my friend and I like to build furniture just for fun on the weekends, and as a result, there's a whole bunch of tools sitting in his garage. Okay, it would be ridiculous for me to expect that these tools are going to be flying around the garage, right, producing a table, right? So if I drove down to his house right now and opened up his garage, I would expect to see it empty, right, devoid of furniture, because the capital is not producing the furniture by itself, okay? So labor needs capital to be productive, but at the same time, capital needs labor as well, okay? And so what we're trying to basically say is that firms produce things using both labor and capital. But then the question becomes, which one do they increase and when, right? So do they increase the amount of labor